Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this board meeting for the Oakville Public Library. I'm calling this to order right now, and Jessica's running over to me. Is there something I missed? No? I'm not sure. Give me 1 second, folks. Oh, yes, I don't have that. Is that handy? Okay. Members of the board, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest today? I'm seeing none. Oh my gosh, look at my hair. I didn't get ready for this meeting at all. Are there any regrets to advise us of this evening, Madam Committee Clerk?
We have regrets from Andrew Cashman and Stephen Bright.
Thank you. And did you find that?
I'm just searching for it.
Okay, give us 1 second. We are just like my the hair and makeup department, who didn't attend to me today. I've also missed our territorial acknowledgement. So give me 1 second. Oh, that's perfect. I'll just open my email. Yep. Councillor Hazel-Thiel, you'll be very excited to the new technology here to get us back in the council chamber I'm getting to play with tonight. So you can actually see the close-up of me because we have cameras at our council stations now. Okay. Members of the board, I'm going to read our territorial acknowledgement tonight. Oakville Public Library is situated on Treaty Number 14 and Treaty Number 22 treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat and the Haudenosaunee. Oakville is currently home to many different First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Regardless of where we come from, we are all interconnected through the land that we live on, water that we use, and the air that we breathe. We are committed to a continuous learning journey and allyship. We seek to elevate Indigenous voices and lived experience to cultivate reconciliation in Oakville. So thank you very much for that. And let's move on to our previous minutes. I've got 2 sets of minutes, 3.1, which is the minutes of the regular meeting that was held on February 24th, as well as the confidential minutes also held that day. Members of the board, can I get a motion to approve those minutes? Thank you. Janet, is there a seconder? Thank you, Pankaj. Are there any comments, questions, errors, or omissions to report this evening? I'm not seeing any, so I will ask if there are any objections to the approval of the minutes. Seeing none, those are approved. Thank you very much for that. Members of the board, we have 3 items on our consent agenda this evening. Minutes of the Oakville Public Library Ad Hoc Procedural Bylaw Review Committee, as well as the Oakville Public Library keyboard agenda items, as well as the health and safety report. Members of the board, does anybody wish to separate any of those items this evening, or are you satisfied to approve the recommendations contained therein? Janet.
Can we just separate 4.1 out? I just have a couple questions on it.
We sure can. Anything else? I'm not seeing any. Can I get a motion to approve the other 2 agenda items, please? That would be 4.2 and 4.3. Thank you, Bill. Seconded by Susan. Thank you very much. Any objection to the approval? Those are approved. Okay, you have the floor. 4.1.
I refresh my memory. I'm not sure if I just missed it, but so we had a discussion about the procedural committee's work, but this is the first time we're seeing those minutes, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and in terms of action items coming out of the minutes, so we're saying that we're going to receive them, but is the committee meeting again, as an example, to talk about that emergency management protocol? I know we're all grateful to be out of it now, but that was one of the takeaways. And so I wasn't clear on next steps. And then, so that's one of my questions. And my other was, I was curious if we're going to discuss about the recommendations around term limits.
So maybe Tara can jump in to assist, but I can tell you, Andrew's not here tonight, so I'm a member of the committee, so I'll just comment on a couple of things. And Bill is also a member of the committee, so he can jump in if necessary. I can report that we did meet. We had a good conversation. Those topics were raised, and we had a good, I guess, full conversation about those. The ideas, including the ones that you mentioned, have been sent back to staff to draft to bring back to the next committee meeting, which is being scheduled right now, or is already scheduled? Is it March 31st?
It's right now, it's the 31st.
31st, yeah. I know I accepted it today. I just can't
Yeah.
remember what the date was. So the upcoming meeting is the 31st, at which point we'll see the wording based on our deliberations. And if we are satisfied with that, we'll recommend it for the next board meeting.
And will there be an agenda item around discussing an emergency management protocol or any changes to how we handled going into COVID and emergency management decision-making?
That is part of the bylaw drafts that will come back in terms of dealing with some of those questions that we had to deal with, and we had to do some special meetings and such to attend to at the beginning of the pandemic. So those are items that are, I think, are going to be discussed at the next committee meeting. I'll ask Tara if she can maybe summarize what she's working on, because I know she and her team have taken the thoughts from the committee and are turning them into words. Can you maybe give us a bit of a summary?
Sure, yeah. So some of the minutes kind of highlight what we talked about as part of that initial meeting. So those aspects are really what we've concentrated on in terms of updating the bylaw, and we're taking a draft to the committee next week for more feedback. There are other items like the one you just spoke to, Janet, that have come up, as well as, I think, financial controls. There's a couple of other aspects that through other conversations have come up for further discussion. So chances are actually that depending on how the March 31st meeting goes, it may actually not come in April, depends how we can turn it around, or whether or not we want to bring it in stages. But we'll talk to the committee about that, whether we'll bring it like a fulsome report back, or whether or not we can do it in stages, but we can have a conversation about that. But what we talked about is mainly what you saw in the minutes, but we have identified some other issues that we'll bring to the discussion next week.
Great.
All right, thanks very much. I'd be prepared to move 4.1 then.
Thank you very much. That's been moved. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Bill. Any further comments or questions? Any objection to the approval? That's approved. Thank you. Let's move. There are no confidential consent agenda items. We'll move on to paragraph 6, which is our discussion items, starting with 6.1, the year-to-date financial status indicators. Is there a report? Did you want to give us a bit of a summary of this?
There's not really much for summary. We're in Q1. There's not really a ton of information. We're on target so far this year. We are seeing some savings in terms of staff vacancy, which is not really unexpected at this point. But to date, as you can clearly see, we are roughly where we should be across the board, and I have no concerns about how the first quarter is going.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Can I get a motion to receive the report, please? Thank you, Pankage, seconded by? Seconder, please. Bill, thank you very much. Any further comments or questions? Any objection to the receipt? That's carried. 6.2 is the 2021 performance and measures. Any questions on that? Comments or questions? Janet?
Hey, can you just refresh my memory? Do we ever do an analysis of visits by operating hours?
So we have done that in terms of when we're creating our schedules. In the past, we've looked at what the trends are by hour and by day of the week, and that's how we schedule.
Okay. It's just that, I mean, obviously it's looking at 2020 and 2021, and it's a bit of a mess, right? I mean, we're just grateful for how well everybody did just using the hours that we were available. But it's just, sometimes it's a bit of a misnomer when you're looking at when a library is open less hours than another library, and you're trying to do a comparator and visits. I mean, it's not really, it's not the same. So I just wondered if on the reporting level at some point that analysis is done.
No, it is done more on an operational level for us.
Okay. Well, if we ever needed to make capital decisions, we might want that detail, but I guess we don't need it regularly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions on this? I just have one. On the branch visits, I just noticed that there's a wide latitude in the percentage, and obviously all decreased. There's a wide latitude by branch as to decreases in attendance. Like, for example, Central 75 and Glen Abbey is 41. Any thoughts on why that would be? Was one closed more than the other? I don't.
Do you have any thoughts? Yeah, Simona does all the analysis for this. I'm just going to see if she has any thoughts.
I would have, like, I guess when I intuitively, I would have looked at this and assumed they would all be roughly the same. I was just curious why there was such a variance between them.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. So I can answer that question. So right underneath the chart, you can see that what happened was for Central, we had a few months in late 2021 when we did not get the numbers from the gates. So that's part of it. And then the other note is that for White Oaks, again, there are probably 4 asterisks there.
Yeah.
The 2021 data is once again not complete because for part of the fall, so from September till I believe about, I want to say mid-November, we did not have the data from the school gates. So we're missing a considerable amount of people. As you probably know, we get a lot of students coming in to the library from the school. So I would suspect that's part of the reason, and you can actually see that those are the two that are minus 75%. So we know for sure that data is simply missing, and we have no way of getting it.
Okay. So the gate count would have that much of an influence on the Central numbers. So that doesn't seem out of line to you at all?
No, because if we missed, we would have missed a few months at the time when we were actually open, right? Because
True,
in the
that's true.
fall
Yeah.
of 2021, we were physically open to the public at that point in time. So it's not even some of the 4 months that we were closed. So and again, in the fall of 2021, for White Oaks, it was the first time we actually had the school library function as a school library where the students and the members of the public were there at the same time. So again, I totally can see why that is the case.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
I will just mention that one of the things that we are looking at with ITS is, because these are all taken based on the security gates, is looking at putting in people counters as well. That way we can just validate, and there's a capacity. If we have a problem with one, we have a backup. So we are looking to resolve some of the gate issues we've been having.
Does that information report real time as well for the sake of attendance management? I don't know if it was ever an issue during COVID, but I mean, clearly some organizations had capacity limits, and I'm wondering, did those gates help, and would they help in the future if that were ever to be the case?
No, not really.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? That was a good answer, by the way, just very succinct and clear, and no. Can I get a motion to receive the report, please? Thank you, Bill.
Hey,
Bill,
I have
you
a
are a
question.
mover. You're a mover.
I have a question.
Oh, okay, go for it.
It was when I was looking through the cardholder section, and I noticed the active cardholders for only 4% were teens, and I thought that was kind of a shocking number. I don't know, maybe I haven't been following this very well, but is that kind of typical? Like 4% for teens? I don't know. I was really surprised with that.
I'm not sure I can speak to whether or not that's typical, but we can certainly talk to some other libraries and find out whether or not we're in line with that or not.
Yeah, I was just kind of surprised. Like that seemed very low to me, but maybe we need to do something to inspire more teens to actually use their cards. But,
and I will say that that's a good point, because I can tell you that the number of teens we have in the library may not match how many teens have cards. Because we know that Glen Abbey after school is packed, as is Iroquois Ridge and of course White Oaks.
Right.
In there. But they're looking for space. We don't necessarily require your card for everything. So, but we are looking at one of the things I know Simona's programming team is looking at is how to engage with teens. We've got a teen takeover program that we're looking to do in the coming months that hopefully will start to re-engage them post-pandemic.
Thanks.
I would just follow up on that question. Do you require a card to use the Wi-Fi in the branches? Because I imagine
No.
the teens all register for Wi-Fi, no? So
No.
it's the same public Wi-Fi portal we have throughout town
Correct.
buildings? Is that, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you're using a client, you have to use a card, correct?
If you use one of our public access computers.
Right, but most
Yes.
of them would just probably be using, most of the teens would probably be coming with their own devices, I would imagine.
Yes, and to be completely truthful, if somebody comes in and doesn't have a library card, we do have guest passes that we do allow them
Oh.
to. We don't always necessarily, we encourage people to get a library card, but we don't deny access to our public access computers if they don't have one.
Was there a point when libraries, the students all got library cards automatically by virtue of being students in Halton? Was that a thing at some point?
At White Oaks, that happens.
Okay,
But not necessarily across the board.
okay. Okay. Any further questions? Janet?
I love it when we get into these conversations. So is that a request that we'd make of the Halton Catholic School Board and the Halton District School Board? Because to me, when you think about you're giving the wonderful kits you come up with for new babies, like a kindergartner should automatically like start kindergarten, junior kindergarten with a library card and have it renewed in grade 6 with a tour that says, here are all the things that, you're moving up to in the library. Like, is that something that strategically we can have a conversation with Halton about? Moms and dads pull out their cards for the younger ones. I get it. But ownership of a card and feeling like this is their, I just think there's some power in that. And the whole strat plan, a large part of it we were talking about is, we're the best kept secret. And so I just wonder, is that something that we can grab onto and at least explore a little bit?
So I have two answers. One is that we do, pre-COVID, and what we're looking to reestablish that is we would do grade 2 visits. So we would go into classrooms at the grade 2 level, really talk about what we do, what we service, and do kind of a card push at that point. And that was always really successful for us in the past. That being said, we are continuing to try and establish better relationships with the 2 school boards. And so we have seen some success with that recently. That's actually been one of the benefits, I think, of COVID, is that we have been able to get some bigger connections to that. So again, I know Simona's team is having conversations with the different schools as it is. The challenge is that they don't operate as a single unit, right? So even though there's a school board, it's really schools and teachers, and it's quite complicated. But we have been making, I think, great strides in making the connections that we need in order to be able to build that. So we can definitely report back on how that's going in the next couple board meetings.
Thank you.
Following up on Janet's comment, I was pretty sure, and I may be mistaken, but I thought that was something we had done years ago. But my question is this: are we aware of any other libraries that do that create some sort of a relationship with the school board so that kids automatically get library cards?
I don't know of any. Do you know of any?
Would the
It's not quite automatic, but certainly it happens, but it's not automatic. Like, you can't automatically really do that I know of.
Part of the thing is that parents do need to sign off on it, right? We can't just go give kids cards without parent permission. So whereas I think there's, what Simona's saying is there's library systems that do have programs to do that. It isn't necessarily when you enroll in school, you get a library card. But that's not to say that we can't potentially do a better relationship where we're sending home something as part of a school package in order to help encourage some of that.
Be nice once. Is our registration system set up online?
It is, yes.
Okay. It'd be kind of interesting if when at the beginning of the year, when parents are used to getting the package of documents for registration, if we could find some way to just
Slip that in.
slip in something that says, and you, in quotes, need a library card.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that we've been working on, is how we can get some of our documentation, our pamphlets into the packages that parents send home. So it is a goal of ours, for sure.
Because if you get the library card in their hands, they're more likely to use it, whether
Absolutely.
it's online or in person. So that'd be a worthwhile initiative, I think.
Yep.
But, okay, thank you. Good conversation. Anybody else on this matter? Not seeing anybody. Can I get a motion to receive this? I think, Bill, you're in the business of motioning tonight. Do you want it? Thank you. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Susan. Further comments or questions? Any objections to the approval of this receipt? Seeing none, that's approved. 6.3, National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, and this recommendation is that the library recognize the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation as a statutory holiday. Did you want to frame this for us, Tara?
Sure. So the board will remember that last year was the first National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, as was declared by the federal government. It isn't a provincial holiday. As such, we did not treat it like a statutory holiday last year. We did mark the day. We did a lot of programming leading up to that day, but through conversations with the community at large, they asked that we not do programming on that day, that we really then promote their programs and try and push people out to those community groups and those different Indigenous communities to learn directly from them. So this year, the town recognized the September 30th as a statutory holiday. And so we've had ongoing conversations with them. We would like to match that, and that town facilities will be closed on September 30th with the recommendation that our staff take the time to really mark that day. We'll probably continue to do Truth and Reconciliation programming. We commit to doing that 365 days of the year. But again, leading up to that day, there'll always be a broader push. And like last year when we did the 4-season certificate for staff, we are looking at triggering something that will lead up to that day and then allowing staff that day to really spend the time thinking about truth and reconciliation and what it means to them and in the Oakville community.
That would require the branches to be closed then, I assume.
Correct.
Okay. Janet?
So I'm thankful for your description, and obviously we probably want to honor their request. One of the gaps, though, that I heard from people is that there was a lack of awareness of a place to go on Truth and Reconciliation Day. That that all the closures lost in it, and it might be just an advertising and marketing and support that needs to occur. People just didn't know well, I thought of going somewhere to commemorate, to do this, and they weren't, connected to it. And I mean, the town owns that as much as others, but when I first read this, I thought, of all the places people would love to connect with the library, and why wouldn't they host it at the library events? They still, can operate it. It's their time and place, but so I was I have to admit, I read it and was like, so I hope that it's clear to the public where they can go and have those moments and commemoration, because I don't think that was as much the case last year. Maybe I have a smaller, circle of individuals that spoke to me about it, but it seemed to be a miss.
No, and I think that's definitely a conversation that's happening in that community. I think last year there was a lack of centralized community around it, and I think there's more talks about how we can kind of create that type of location this year, but again, being led by the Indigenous communities in Oakville and Halton. And we will continue to support. The branches may not be open, but that wouldn't mean that we couldn't continue to promote it. And we will work with them, I think, on those types of events, because I think we play a role in that. And I know there's conversations from the different type, Grandmother's Voice, Miss Sugg is at the credit, and how we can kind of create exactly what you're talking about. People have an idea, they want, it's like Remembrance Day, right? Like we know on Remembrance Day, and then there is that event. So how can we create that? And we'll continue to work with our Indigenous partners about how we can assist them in creating something that I think allows people to do exactly what you're talking about.
Thank you very much.
It's an interesting conundrum because I know that the folks that have been advocating for Remembrance Day to be a statutory holiday or a national holiday are often dissuaded from that because it takes the children, particularly out of the school system, which will, they are the ones that really push the programming for remembrance forward in the schools. And so if the argument goes that if you declare a national holiday, it's going to be another day that kids are in front of their screens or whatever, and not necessarily engaging in the purpose for the day. So I guess it's a conundrum that I guess it's up to leaders in the community to find ways to activate their community. I saw Colleen's screen lit up. Did that mean that you had a comment, Colleen, or are you just making your presence known?
No, I just wanted to actually speak to the fact that the town is planning on doing a whole program leading up to Truth and Reconciliation Day as a means of public education and building awareness and profile in the community, to Councillor Hassett-Theo's point.
Yes.
Last year it was a little bit rushed. We luckily had some plans already in the works, and we were able to capitalize on that. But we're looking at a much bigger program, and we're looking at a broader program over the course of the year that goes beyond just September 30th. So I think that will help address some of the concerns, Councillor Hassett-Theo, that you're hearing from residents.
Thanks, Commissioner. I found the Truth and Reconciliation Day very fulfilling in some ways, even in its first year, because I know I'm a big 680 News fan, and in my office and in my car, I'm usually listening to it. It's not called the City News now, I guess it's referred to as. But throughout the day, they had Indigenous stories, and so all day long, every 10 minutes or so, there's another. And I found myself just basically. My attention was like completely drawn to that. It was very interesting. I learned a lot that day. So yeah, I guess the more organized programming there is, the better. And so hopefully in that same vein, you and your team will make sure that we're moving in that direction too. We have some great resources within the library to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation contained in the agenda to make that a statutory holiday for the Oakville Public Library? Thank you, Bill. Mr. Mover. Bill's a mover and shaker today. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Pankage. Any further discussion or comments? I'm not seeing any objection to the approval of that motion. See none, that is approved, and we have just made that a statutory holiday for the library. Congratulations, everybody. Moving on to 6.4, which is the CEO update, and I will hand it over to the CEO to carry us through.
Sure. Before I jump into my PowerPoint slide, you will notice that the CEO update has two different recommendations to them. One is to receive the report. The other one is that the Oakville Public Library's COVID-19 vaccination policy for full-time, part-time, casual students, temporary contract staff and volunteers remain unchanged. We're just asking the board just to recommit to that. There's been a lot of conversations both locally, provincially, nationally about vaccination policies. We've been getting a lot of questions from staff. I know we've had previous conversations, but they haven't necessarily been public. In the report, I did kind of highlight the changes to COVID restrictions, the majority of which have been lifted at this point. There is still, we've just recently updated our different scenarios because they're continuing to keep us on our toes with all the different breakdowns and requirements, when you still need to wear a mask, when you don't need to wear a mask, when you need to isolate, when you don't need to isolate. So we are continuing to do that. The mask mandate was lifted as of Monday, but we still continue to strongly recommend that both staff and public wear that in our facilities. And so I just wanted to highlight that before I jump into the CEO update. So is there any questions about?
Can I just ask you about that? So we're the staff. We're recommending staff wear masks, but we're not requiring staff to wear masks.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Yep. Do you know what the uptake is?
I would say the majority of staff are still continuing to wear masks.
Well, 2 out of 3 here are right now. I'm just kidding.
It's hard to talk through a mask. But as for the public, I don't get a sense, although it is a frequent conversation at the emergency team meeting at the town. It seems to be area by area. Every place that I've been over the past couple days, it's been about 60-40, with 60% wearing a mask and 40, but I do know that hasn't been the experience for everybody that I've spoken to. So it really does depend on, I think, where you're going, how you're kind of seeing it. So I think this week will be a transition week, and then we'll kind of see next week moving forward. Although, as you know, we are seeing record number of cases spring up rather suddenly. So it'll be interesting to see how that progresses over the next couple of months.
Just as an interesting aside, in my personal business, outside of my council responsibilities, my staff are estimating that about 90% of our guests are still wearing masks. And we were really expecting it to be closer to the 50-50 or at least 60-40, but we were pleasantly surprised by people's, I guess, desire to remain safe and keep other people safe for the time being while we go through this.
No, absolutely. It has been
post-March
surprising.
break period. So
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Carry on.
So any other questions about the COVID piece?
I can't really see everybody, but I'm not seeing any hands. Nope. Let's move on.
So strategic plan. So as you all know, I presented the strategic plan at council on February 28th. It was really well received. Councilors had some really great comments both during the session and emails to me directly afterwards, which was fantastic. You would have saw that we've essentially done almost like a soft launch of it. There has been some delay in getting some of the collateral and the videos from Intent just due to some illnesses that they've had on their side. However, they're almost all complete. You can kind of see some final drafts up there, the posters that'll go out into the branches, as well as some of the visuals we'll be putting out through social. There's also a video. We actually did two, but this is the public one I'm going to show you today. It's not 100% done. Joe still requested a couple tweaks, but it's pretty close to done. So I'd like to show it to you this evening. I'm really quite pleased with how it's turned out.
Well, we at the board believe that a strategic plan is very important to set the course for the future of our library. The Oakville Public Library Board is very enthusiastic about being the library of the future for the people of Oakville. And so we wanted to carefully craft that plan so that we could actually know where we've been, but more importantly, know where we're going.
One of the key components of our strategic planning process was the public consultation. In 2021, we went out and the community answered. And I want to say a special thank you to everyone who responded to our public survey or our stakeholder interviews. That information was significant in helping us build our current strategic plan.
So the Oakville Public Library Board really spent a lot of time analyzing what the community was telling us as we developed our strategic plan. We listened very carefully to what people wanted and what they needed in a library system. And we spent quite a bit of time on trying to not just look at what libraries have meant to communities in the past, but what we can do for the future.
Well, you always have to be cognizant that there are some people that can't actually come to you. So you need to provide the programs and services and meet them where they are.
OPL truly is the land of endless possibilities, which is why our first pillar is expanding our reach. That is the driver behind our first pillar, is how do we get in front of every single resident in Oakville and let them know that we have something for them. Whether that's access to books, whether that's access to digital resources, whether that's somebody to come in and have a conversation with. It's our job to ensure that we're supporting our community, and we can only do that if they know what's available to them.
The library to me is always a soft place to land, and it really focuses on people of all ages and stages. When I joined OPL, I learned about all of the incredible programs that we have. Whether you're a new parent or a senior who's looking for support, the library provides incredible community programs. They also provide places like the Creation Zone, where you can use a Cricut machine if you're creative. If you want to learn to sew, you can learn to sew at the library.
Another pillar of our plan is the concept of digital discovery. Now, technology is all around us, but not everybody is equally equipped to be able to deal with that change. We want to make sure that our community is not only able to access the resources that we can make available to them, but that we can show them how to access those resources, make them available, and demonstrate their utility.
I think seniors get a bad rap about not getting technology, and it's really not true. A lot of them are really interested in learning it, practicing it, and they just need somebody with patience to explain it to them, and then they're happy to do it.
OPL's third pillar is investing in staff to deliver exceptional customer experiences. We want to make sure that no matter your question or what you're looking for, staff are there and ready to help.
I think my favorite thing that happens at the library is when somebody comes in and asks a question that they think, you know, this might be a long shot, but do you guys do this, or could you help me with this? And when we get to say, absolutely, we can help you with that, even if it's just a starting point, having the ability to do that has been amazing.
And our fourth pillar is enriching lives and building healthy communities. Now, everybody knows that libraries are full of books and wonderful resources to enrich our lives, but libraries are so much more, and they can be so much more. So this pillar really talks about building partnerships and delivering services from outside of the branches, connecting with community organizations and individuals to find out what they need and help target our resources and services to achieve those goals towards building a healthy and vibrant community.
I'm really excited about OPL's new strategic plan, and I hope each and every one of you is excited as I am. We're going to do great things over the coming years, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you to ensure that our Oakville community has the best public library it can.
So tell me, are the tweaks that Joe's working on getting less of me in the video?
No more.
Oh, okay, good. That was excellent. Well done.
More. Yeah, we're really quite pleased. There's a staff version too that will be shown to staff and any new staff that come on board too. But that one's still a little bit. We wanted to concentrate on the public one. But we're really pleased about how it's turned out. So I'm happy to see that you guys are too.
Excellent. Janet?
Not that it has huge viewership, but it would be lovely if it was on Oakville Matters and launched on Oakville Matters or Town Talk. I think it deserves presence, and Nikki is a great interviewer, and she would grab this and it would do amazing. I mean, I think it would really highlight and get the viewership that we want, right? People to see and be inspired. Really well done.
No, thank you. We'll definitely explore that.
Anything further? Okay, carry on.
So North Park, just an update on North Park. So everything is going really well. We had an information session on Tuesday. There were 24 residents that attended, including one of the board members. And there was a number of items that were discussed. We had 2 of the 24 attend our library breakout session. So it was a good chance to have a really good conversation with both of them. Some of the items that we discussed were the creation zone. They were asking a lot about the technology that's going in there, and we did explain that it's a bit too early for us to know for sure. That we'll know more closer into 2024. They did talk about how excited they are with the direction that the library is going, and how excited they are about all the new technologies that are currently available at Glen Abbey. They wanted potential programs relating to identifying credible online information, which we do, but we target more for children. They were looking more for adults, so that's something that we're actually looking at exploring right now. And then they did express a desire for reading in cozy spaces. There was a request for a fireplace in the new building. So we're just taking a look at that. That is on the table, although we'll see where the costing kind of plays out with some of those pieces. I do have some of the slides from the presentation that the architects did that really kind of show the idea that they're going with. So this is the North Park development. This is what was at the information session. This is what they plan for it to look like from the outside. And then again, just a highlight of all the different kind of amenities that are going on there. It is definitely going to be a massive destination in Oakville once this is all built. Now there is staging to some of this, but this is what I think the end result is expected to be, and you can kind of see where the community center and library are right that, and just all the other opportunities. We're really excited about all the synergies and other opportunities that the whole area is going to afford us. This is the outside of the building, so you can kind of see there is, to the bottom, Nayagawa, you see that little cutout, that's where the children's area is going to be, and then to the right, where the clump of trees is, right underneath the accessible parking, that is the That'll be a giant window from the library facing out. That will be a kind of a seating area out there. So it's going to be, we're really excited with the landscaping ideas that the architect is coming forward with. It's really going to be a beautiful, beautiful space. So this is what it is targeted to look at, looking at it from Nayagawa. So if you were standing on the other side of Nayagawa looking west, this is what that new building is supposed to look like. And then if you're in the parking lot facing east, this is what it's supposed to look like. So that's the library at the end there. And then the main entrance for us, and then you'd go down the Galleria to attach to the rest of the 16-mile sports complex.
It looks like the architect thought there was going to be a shopping mall as part of this because that family there has quite a few
bags
packages from their shopping excursion.
That's all the books that they're returning.
All their books, okay.
It's all the books that they're returning. And then this is one of their concepts for what the library will look like inside. We're really excited, again, by the double height windows going in there. Of course, we'll continue to talk about how we're going to manage some of that light throughout the day, but that will be a wonderful problem to have. And then there's been some small updates to the plans, not so much on the bottom floor as the up floor, but again, I just wanted to bring this back and show that, so that one that we just saw is basically facing the lobby, the entrance, so they'll come in through that lobby vestibule, enter the creation zone. It'll be glass out to the lobby to really show the energization of that space. And then the program room, the Tinker Lab, and then that bottom right-hand corner that we've now designated that more of a reading space, kind of a cozy kind of place, and could potentially be an option for a fireplace if we wanted to put that in there right next to the outdoor play area. And then upstairs, we also have a reading magazine area upstairs. It'll be much more quiet upstairs. The study room is really the most significant change to this. We relocated it. It was by the running track, and we decided to put it on the other side. I just think it just makes it a little bit quieter. The photo video cove, we're also calling that a multi-purpose room because we're really looking to how we can make that as multifunctional as possible to really maximize our spaces. And then you'll see the two smaller meeting rooms up there. So that's really what North Park is looking like at the moment. And I say we're probably about 95% done with some of these designs. We're continuing to tweak the collection size and those types of pieces, but we're really pleased with how this is turning out. We're excited to see it come to fruition in a couple years. Questions about North Park?
Any questions? I just have one. I may have asked this before, and if I did, I apologize, but is there a contiguous connection to all of the facilities? So indoor connection. So can you go from the sports complex to the library? Yeah, I'm seeing Colleen nodding. Okay.
You can from the bottom floor. You can't from the top floor.
No, I understand that, but
Yeah.
somebody in the rain could walk from one section
absolutely.
to the other kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that main purple area at the top, that's the main connector, and it goes all the way. It's a main artery through the entire facility.
Okay. Thank you. Janet?
Just from a COVID perspective, if we end up in a situation again where we have to do library takeout only, we have to have limitations on access, was that at all considered in how things were laid out?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, that is definitely a consideration. Even if we had to, where we were open and the rec center wasn't, we did adjust some of the doors. We're likely going to put in some kind of like secondary doors so that, again, if we need to do library takeout and we want to prevent access to the full facility, we can do it as needed for that. So we are working through some of those contingencies should we be required to do that again.
So not to get too deep into the blueprint, but so the main entry comes right into the creation zone, is that right?
So the creation zone has the door. So really you walk in and you walk straight and it kind of goes through and the creation zone is a door off the main entrance, yes.
Okay, so I can enter from the entrance vestibule and then once I'm inside, I come in around and in to get to the creation zone?
Correct.
Kind of like Glen Abbey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little bit closer, but it's very close. It's very similar to Glen Abbey.
Okay, so I must be missing something. So if I walk in the entrance vestibule, can I turn immediately left and walk into the library?
Yes.
Ah, okay, all right. I was thinking that we had to go all the way around and come, and I was like,
No.
whoa, 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 what are we doing here?
No,
Okay,
you can you go in through that entrance vestibule where it says entrance vestibule. Then, like, as soon as there's a double doors, once you're through the second door, that's the main entrance to the library. There is an internal book drop there for people to drop off their books if they're on their way to swimming lessons. They don't necessarily have to come in the library, but it is a straight turn into the library from there.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I think Colleen does.
Oh, I'm sorry, Colleen.
Mr. Chair, did you call on me upon me because I couldn't really hear you?
I was, somebody suggested that you wanted to comment or speak.
Yes.
Okay, you have the floor.
Yeah, so further to Tara's comments about the fact that we considered issues related to the pandemic, and that also include isolating particular areas so that they could continue to operate while the rest of the building might be closed down. We also took into account security as well. So we had a security consultant take a look at if we had to do full or partial lockdown, how easy that would be to secure different areas as well.
Excellent. Anything further? Not seeing anything. Carry on.
So moving on to the other North Park update really is the 16-mile relocation. We are on target for that. The site planning application, which is a major component, has been submitted. We are hopefully anticipating that the tender package will go out on April 27th. We're working closely with purchasing to see if we can make that happen. If we hit that date, then the timing stays as I previously discussed, which is we'll close probably late May, but the move will start in June, and then we'll reopen in September. In order to support library services during that closure, we're going to be adding additional lockers and a browse and borrow kiosk to the OPL Express location in that facility. So even though that the branch is there, just because of the hours of the sports complex, we do see some pretty solid use of the lockers that are in the vestibule. So we'll be adding in some more towers to add capacity in there, as well as a browse and borrow to kind of bring in more of a browsing component to that. We're also going to offer a pop-up library model in there. It's something that we haven't done to date. So 16 Mile is graciously giving us space where we can kind of store different materials. Then we'll have a pop-up schedule. People will be able to stop by. There'll be grab-and-go bags, a bit more material, a staff member in order to be able to assist. So we're still working on a schedule with that. And then we'll also be doing programming both at 16 Mile Sports Complex and other areas within the community that we're still identifying. So as these things kind of get solidified, such as a schedule for the pop-up library and the programming, we'll bring that forward. I do have some drawings that I got from the other consultant.
Before you move on, the pop-up concept would be the same that we had at Town Hall when White Oaks was under renovation?
Well, yes, the only difference is that it won't necessarily be, here was a bit more of an established piece. There it'll really be like during the hours it'll be out. And then if it's after the hours, you won't even know it would have been there. So that's a little bit.
And question, with respect to the capital piece of this, are we acquiring more lockers or just repurposing some that are already in?
We're going to purchase new lockers.
Okay. And is there since it's only for a few months, do you have a plan what you do with it? Because I imagine they're pretty expensive.
They are, but they can be reused, right? Okay. So the way it works is that normally when you first buy the piece of equipment, it's 3 towers. One is the control tower and then 2 locker towers. We're adding in 2 additional locker towers. So as we identify a new OPL location, OPL Express location, we may just have to purchase the control tower and put the other 2. Or we may see that this just continues to be successful. Or we could just, frankly, once North Park is open, move the whole complete thing to a new location. So it is quite flexible, which is one of the driving factors.
So we're not just buying it for the few months. Okay, terrific.
No.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I thought, this is my bad, we had to put the slide in about where exactly it will be up at North Ops. I'll send it to the board on Monday as part of my update that I send out. But just to give you a quick head, so if you're driving up Nayagawa North, the library will be right on the road in front of North Ops, or just about 3 meters back from the road, and it'll be south facing. So as you drive up north, the front of the library will be right there. And we're working on new signage and different things that we're going to put on Nayagawa in order to redirect people for that they know where to find the branch. But so all of that work is in progress.
And parking will be, and access to the parking lot will be the same access as the.
It's the North Op parking lot, yes. Yeah, we are working with the consultant on, there is enough parking up there. We're just working with them. We might update some of the lighting. Just because of where the library will be, because it's not exactly where it would be for the building itself.
But ingress and egress will be through the same driveway as the
Correct.
staff will use. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then finally, just an update on board recruitment. So there were 30 applicants for the library board, which is really exciting. The board, remember that the board has previously approved a skills matrix. So I take all the applicants, I rank them through a skills matrix. A report will be provided as part of the April board meeting outlining the ranking results and the recommendations that I'm making to the board. The board can then approve those recommendations or adjust them, and then they'll go to council for final approval. And those recommended people, as per council direction, will be appointed to the board. And that's.
And just for clarification for everybody, this is an appointment to the end of the existing term, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Or until a successor is appointed.
Is that the way the board members work? I thought all board members expire at the same time. I don't mean that in a mortal way. I know executive, I know the chair operate on the, or until replaced, but I wasn't sure if board members do or not.
I want to answer you, but my mic has stopped working.
Oh, okay.
So they won't hear me. My mic has stopped working.
I wouldn't take it personally.
You want this one?
If they can't fix it, in like 2 seconds.
He's getting you a new mic.
We're just waiting for Jessica's mic to be reactivated.
It was.
So just to quickly answer about the board recruitment and the appointment, it's technically until November 14th, but because we have to post for the new council term all of November, and then council reviews in December, the board can't be empty from November 14th until we finally appoint in like January, February. So that's why it says until a successor is
Gotcha.
appointed.
Okay, thank you. Makes sense. Appreciate that.
We can't get no board for a few months.
Yeah,
So that is the end of my report.
that concludes your report. So members of the board, we have 2 motions out of that report, and I see Janet's hands up, so I'll go to Janet.
I have one question on the actual CEO report. You've mentioned that you're making space in Central Branch for Visit Oakville. Could you just give us a little bit more insight on what that looks like? And is it on the main floor? Is it by Oakville Galleries? Does
Yes.
it impact where the food shelves are? I mean, how's that?
So are you familiar with where the information Oakville section is in the upper floor? So it's
Yep.
basically, it's that pamphlet section. So we're basically carving out a section of that area for Visit Oakville. So you're probably familiar with the Visit Oakville section here in the in Town Hall with all their pamphlets. That's basically what's moving to Central.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what it is. Sorry.
Had a different vision of when reading it. I'm going, okay, so like we just redesigned there. Okay, so thank you for that clarification. And just one, while we're on sort of that central and that front area, I got some feedback from some folks saying that they felt that it was a bit sterile. That, you know, we've gone to and it might be that it's just coming out of COVID, and they hadn't really experienced the renovation or whatever. But just I'm not sure if if we've received that feedback from others, but they just felt that it didn't have, the way it's been configured now doesn't feel as inviting as some of the other branches. And I said I would share it with the board and yourself. It may very well be just change, and people have some challenges with change, but that it wasn't from one party. It happened to be several individuals commenting that it just didn't feel as welcoming. In fact, they were raving about Glen Abbey and raving about Woodside. They thought, I don't know if it's how the desk is positioned or whatever, but they just didn't feel it had the warmth that it previously had. And so when I saw we were putting Visit Oakville, and I was like, okay, like, how's that all going to work? But
Yeah.
I understand Visit Oakville now, and you have some feedback to consider.
No, for sure. If it would actually be helpful if maybe you direct those concerned residents to me. I'd like to understand what they mean, because my first thought was, we did remove the desk from right there, so normally there's a staff person, but now it opens up into like a seating area. But the staff members are a bit further back, but that's the way it is at Glen Abbey. So it would just be helpful to understand exactly what they mean, and then how we can maybe adjust it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Janet. Further comments or questions on the CEO report? Can I get a motion? I need two motions. One is the receipt for information. The second is that the Oakville Public Library COVID-19 vaccination policy for full-time, part-time, casual students, temporary contract staff, volunteers, and contractors remain unchanged. That's the two paragraphs of the motion. Would somebody be willing to give that to me please? Don't all jump. Thank you, Janet. Bill, where are you, man? Pankage. Oh, you totally let me down now. Are there any further comments or questions on this resolution? I'm not seeing any objection to the approval. No objection? That's approved. Thank you. Members of the board, that concludes the public portion of the agenda. I will skip over confidential for a moment and ask if there's any new business. That way, once we go into closed session, when we come back, then we can simply adjourn. So is there new business to come before the board this evening per item 8? I am not seeing any, so I am going to ask for a motion to go into a session closed to the public for the purposes of discussing personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Can I get that motion, please? Thank you, Susan and Bill. Any objection? That's carried. Okay, so for members of the public, this means that we are going into a closed session, which means that our streaming will stop until we've concluded our business. As I mentioned in the statement, we are discussing a personal matter on an HR basis, so that will be done in a private session. When the session is over, we'll come back and adjourn. So if you've joined us up to this point and you don't necessarily want to stick around, thank you for joining us for this month's board meeting. We appreciate your interest and for tuning in, and your willingness to participate through monitoring your board and the civilian oversight of our library system. It's truly appreciated. And with that, I will call a brief recess. So we will reconvene at, let's say, 8:10 in closed session. So everybody can have a chance to refresh their coffees or do whatever they have to do, and we'll see you at 8:10. Oh, the camera button, right. My mic button's not working. Yeah, I forgot.
Try to lift it up.
Cool?
Yep. Okay. Yep.
I'm currently in my first of 3 years at Sheridan, so it's kind of fun to be at that point because you have all great ideas and you're not limited by actual technology. Sheridan College in the glass department here they ran a bit of a competition amongst the students. I submitted my design, and then it got sent off. One of the things that I did before I submitted my design to the town was I had a talk with the actual professors to make sure that it was doable.
It'll look not unlike this. The central piece will actually have a wave in it. It's got this oak-leaf shape to it. When you look down on it, it'll have a nameplate on there, and then when it comes out of the mold, it looks not unlike this. It'll be on the end of the pipe, and we just break it off, and we put that in to cool. And then when it's done, we saw it off right about here, and polish the bottom. So of course this one's been sawn already.
The process of the thing kind of goes like we start out with a spike of glass. We form we take a gather and we form it into kind of a conical piece of glass. And then we get a couple of what we call gathers. We gather glass on the end of a rod, and then we roll it in colored powder, which is basically really finely crushed glass with color in it. Then we melt that in. We roll it a few times just to make sure that it's got lots of solid color on it. What we do is we take molten glass out of the furnace and we roll it in this colored powder, the glass color, and it sticks. It'll stick to the glass, the hot glass. And then what we do is we take it over to the glory hole and we melt it in. So the glory hole gets it nice and hot, reheats the glass. Once it's melted in nice and neat, I'll take it over to Paul there and he'll stick it on a piece. But I want to get it pretty hot so that I don't have I get a nice small trail for him. And then we apply that onto our spike, right? So we have two colors. We have two guys doing it basically. We'll lay on one color, then we'll flip it over and we'll lay on the other color. So we have basically 3 rods of color together, right? Because we don't want the glass to cool off too much after he's done it, after he's formed his spiky bit there. We don't want the glass to cool off too much, and we don't want to have to reheat it over and over and over again. So it takes 2 of us with bit rods to form 2 colors, just so that we can put the one color on and then put the next color on. And then go and melt them together, because if we put one color on and then he melts it together, then we put another color on and he melts that in, it could melt in kind of a weird blurred shape. So if we put them both on at the same time, then they melt at the same rate, and that makes it much more crisp and nicer.
And so now we laid the color on the center bit, and we just have to melt the color in so it becomes one smooth pattern. Because if there's any seams or anything where the color is, when we plunge it into the middle, it's going to catch bubbles there. So that'll be little imperfections in the design.
Then we'll melt them together so that they're smooth without a lot of edges, because if we have a lot of edges, we'll trap air, and we didn't want a ton of extra bubbles or special design of bubbles, so we wanted to make sure that it's all nice and smooth. Then what we do is we extrude it out a bit lengthwise and give it a twist, a nice slow twist, and that gives it kind of that helix of color. In this you can see the spike of color, but it has this nice, about 2 revolutions worth of color, in 2 revolutions of twist in color. Then we put a bit of a wave into it, so it looks kind of more like a flame. They're dirt from gravity, so this puts a nice bend in it. Then we have a graphite mold that's made out of a big block of graphite. It's a 2-part mold, so it splits in half basically. I'll get a ladle of glass out of the furnace, a big ladle of glass, and we pour that into the mold so it's full. And then the guy who formed the spike with a twist in it plunges that into the mold. So we plunge it straight down into the mold. We let it cool off a little bit so that it firms up, because glass is kind of like taffy, you know. After a few minutes, we wait a little bit longer and it seizes up a little bit more. It's still flexible, but not solid.
Just doing this to cool the edges here, set it up a bit.
Then we pull it out of the mold and we flash it in the glory hole, and that's to even out the heat, but also the flame in the glory hole will polish the one end. So this end here gets its smooth surface from what we call flame polishing.
And so we have to let it completely set up before we put it away. Otherwise, if we put it away too hot, it's gonna deform when it's in the annealer. The internal heat in it will actually like deform the piece.
Yeah, the heat actually moves kind of slow, and the internal heat will come out to the external part of the piece, and then when it sits on the grating in the annealer, because the shelves are great, it can actually take on the shape of the grating if it was too, like if it becomes too hot. When the annealer itself isn't that hot, even though it feels like it. When you stick your head in there, it feels like it. It's not hot enough to actually deform, but the interior of the piece could be 300, 400, 500 degrees warmer than the actual exterior, and then that soaks out to the outside.
Yeah, the annealers are at like 500 degrees, and these furnaces are at like 2,000.
Yeah. Then we wait for a while until it seizes up. As soon as it stops moving, then we'll break it off and we'll put it in the annealing oven.
Now we're just creating a stress point in the glass. Like this is a really cool part now, so if I hit the glass, all the vibrations are gonna stop at that one point.
Then it'll sit in the annealing oven for about 57 hours. And that cools down slowly. And what it does is it takes all the stress out of the glass. Because all the forming that we do causes inconsistent heating throughout the glass, right? And even though we're flashing it and doing all kinds of things to it to try and even out the heat, it'll still have inconsistent heat through it. So what we do is we put it in the annealing oven and it bathes it in a 550 degrees Celsius for a good 25 hours or so. Well, everything in a glass shop is a team effort, right? So I came up with the design. You know, it's my design, but that doesn't mean that I'm the one who carries things out. I mean, there are a number of artists like that. They actually just design it, and somebody else actually makes the thing. In this case, I've got the skill set that allows me to help out, right? And then plus I get to supervise. I get to look and see what's going on. Some other first-year students that are there are Paul Vandenbigger. He's the one who's putting the twist in the glass. He's quite good at it, so we figured why reinvent the wheel for one of us to figure that out. And then there's Matt Crosby, and Matt's helping out with everything else, bringing bids, opening the door. You need to have a hand in the glass shop because there's so many things that are really hot that you just can't do it. You just can't hold a pipe in one hand and try and open the door with the other hand. Especially with this thing, it weighs too much. It's a good 5-10 pounds of glass on there. So it's important that I get Paul and Matt to help out. Each one will be unique. It'll be at least slightly different. No matter how much we wanted them to be exactly the same, they'll always be a little bit different just because of how we did it. The shape of this award, it takes on the shape which is actually an oak leaf. So if you look at it, it's oak leaf shaped, right? And that's of course Oakville's own built-in iconography. So what we did is we placed these spirals of color in the center to kind of symbolize an inner flame. So it's kind of like the inner fire that runs the town. So the volunteers have, are this energy that runs the town, and you don't get anything done without having a good core of volunteers willing to do the things that need to be done. So, so I thought it was important to have that in there, and it also kind of symbolizes the inner fire of the actual people who are volunteers, because they have to have a certain dedication that you don't see. So it's kind of a dual meaning in that regard. You've got the inner fire of the town, and the inner fire in the people who are the inner fire of the town. The complexity of the piece actually requires that you have a few extra hands, especially when we've got a two-part mold. One guy plunges the piece into the mold, but he can't let go of the pipe to try and extract it. So it takes another two people to try and separate the mold off of it, because it can stick. Glass can get sticky at that temperature, and it can get stuck in the mold. And if we leave it in there too long, it's just going to crack. So we'll have a ruined piece at that point. So because graphite really sucks the heat out of the glass, right? It's like doing anything with it, touching metal to the glass, it'll suck the heat out of the glass. So it takes a couple of guys in there, sometimes prying, sometimes physically holding on to the mold with a pair of gloves on, and then Paul can pull it up out of there once it's out, once it's been freed. It's important to pull up vertically so that we don't snap off some of the vertical striations in the mold, like these bits in here. That's solid graphite in the mold, and if we twist it, we can snap them off, and then we've ruined the mold, and we don't want to do that, right? It takes a while to cut one of those things because it's 6 inches thick. So it takes a few hands to get things done. This is actually my first time in Oakville. It's a very nice town. Everybody's really nice here, and it's almost surprising, like how nice everyone is in Oakville, and also how dedicated volunteers are, and how important it is to actually give them some kind of award to recognize what they do. So it was great for me to sit down and go, hey, I get to make this thing.
Volunteers are basically selfless. It's selfless service. It's really giving to others. I know for sure that they're not in doing their volunteer work expecting to be recognized and to be thanked. But it really is, from my perspective, an enormous honor to be able to make this year the awards that will actually recognize them and thank them for the work that they do. Volunteers are the creatures that operate maybe between earth and sky and that keep a community together. The Community Spirit Award for this year is a functional box. That was the request from the committee. I had proposed something that would go on the wall, but it has actually the box itself has a lot of the elements that of my initial proposal. My initial proposal did include this waterfront line delineating the difference between the sky and the earth. So that has been retained in the box. The process of making the boxes has included working with 2 different clay bodies. One that's very groggy, a bit like having sand in it, so it's very textured, and the other one is a porcelain for the temperature that I'm firing to. So the interesting part about these 2 clay bodies is that they're really quite different. One is very smooth, and the other one is this, as I say, more textured, has more almost like sand in it. If you were to feel it with your fingers, you feel more of it's just different to tactile. But these 2 different clays dry differently, and they want to almost go in opposite directions. So it's kind of interesting to work with them in a way that puts them together to come to the awards, which are the boxes.
Vanessa has come a long way in terms of solving a lot of technical problems this year, and it's because she's really set for herself some technical challenges, working with different types of clays and trying to combine them together in a single piece, a single object. as a ceramic artist, that sort of sets you up for trouble. And Vanessa went in knowing that, and she's been strategic in finding ways to sort of respond to those challenges. And it's really boosted her technical skills for sure.
This is why my little note here on that, you know, it's like this.
You're going to get different sorts of responses by working with a hollow, right, where the glaze is going to collect and flow.
Oh, then when it's going to
And that's
drip.
not really representational of the kinds of forms that you're making, where it's going to be, you know, there are little grooves, small areas where it's going to be gathering together, but generally speaking, it's going to flow over.
And then this, all I do is, it's not an elegant process. There. So, see it there? It's come out. It's maybe even a bit distorted. And then, take this magic tool, which I do not know if it has a name, and hope for the best. So, highly unsophisticated. I'm cutting through this box. So now I have two pieces, one that's sort of showing the irregularities and the very hopefully straight cut lid. Once those are put aside, then I return to the same mold, and using the grogged clay now with the globs, I use globs, I press them into the mold. And at a certain point, I then take one of the halves of the porcelainous piece, flip it over into the mold. And so what I'm visually looking at that point is I'll have some porcelainous clay, some space, and almost the grog clay below. And then I'll take more of the grog clay, fill it all in. And what I'm doing there is joining both the porcelainous and the grogged clay. And at that point, I'm really compressing the clay and forming the shape that's going to be in the inside. And that process takes a fair amount of time. And then when that piece, when the mold has absorbed some of the moisture from the actual clay, I flip that out. And then I put together overnight what is now the base of the clay, the base of the box, and the lid. I put them together without the lip, and I actually dry them inverted with a lot of plastic to keep the moisture in. So it's actually not drying, it's just settling, which is sort of an important part of this process. I let that happen overnight, and then the next day I will put the lip into the box, the rim. It's beautiful. I like the way it's so soft by comparison. It's not up to scratch. I know. Noodle's got extremely high standards.
The program at Sheridan is really intense. It takes over your life in ways that you couldn't possibly predict. And the more you learn about it, the more you want to know. And the more you experiment and learn about the materials, you realize that it never ends and that there's always something new and exciting to do with ceramics. And I think that's what's amazing about Sheridan, is that it's a really transformative 3 years.
In order to create the lip of the box, I will first either roll out a slab, a bit like you do with pastry, or I will pass it through our slab roller. Either way, I've got something that looks very much like pastry, and then I cut strips to the size that I want. So I'm able to cut it and create the lip. Then I cut that lip at an angle, and I soften it and I clean it up. So what is lovely about this porcelain is that I can actually use the sponge fairly liberally on it. I can smoothen out the lines where I want them. The last detail that I put on a box is, of course, the writing. So I've chosen to write in script on the boxes. And there is an exhibition of the graduating class of all studios. So it includes textiles, glass, furniture, and ceramics, of course. So that was very exciting. It was a very, very
It was very successful in the sense that we had people coming in there till about 10 o'clock at night. So there were people on the sidewalk, the galleries were full, the work was great. So a great opportunity as a student to start, exhibiting our work and showing our work. And that process is also very interesting because once your work becomes public, there's a whole new dialogue that starts happening.
So, I think that dialogue of privacy is a real important part of what she's been doing with her thesis work. And that's why I think in a lot of ways the fact that she's taken those pieces and been inspired to work more publicly in relation to this commission makes those pieces really interesting.
Once it goes through the bisque firing, then I glaze them. And that's a bit of a slow process. Oakville is my home. I haven't often worked in Oakville, but I have always lived almost in Oakville since my family and I arrived in Canada. We came from Argentina in 1985. This area is to the family very important. The pieces are glazed inside and outside, and there is different glazes for different reasons. As I glaze the inside, both the lid and the box, with a clear glaze. This cleaning off can actually be done at different times. The glaze will come out. Once that is done, then I will glaze the lid and the part of the box that is, whether referring to the lake or the sky with the glaze. And then once that is on, we put the pieces in the kiln for the glaze firing, which is about 16 hours of firing, and then another 16 to 20 of just cooling down before the pieces can be taken out. It says 60 degrees, fair to open. And I can move my hands because it's not so hot. Yes, it works. Most important that it works for the recipient. But yes, I think we have, we've got texture, we've got lines, we've got, the handwritten note, as I try to think of script. I know it's not what we use the most, being so accustomed to text messages, but handwriting does have a connotation of something personal, and these recipients are receiving and are being acknowledged on a very personal activity. So I kind of like that idea. I debated what type of script to put, and then I thought, okay, just handwriting works. So that's what it is.
Together, my wife and I were designers, Myself, I'm a shop guy. I like making stuff. I like getting into the studio early and taking care of business. Trying to figure out how to make something and what the best way to make something will be.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
So it'll be in about there.
Perfect.
Like
and you get to keep some of this stuff.
Yeah, that's a neat.
I like that.
That's a neat thing. I wonder how it'll stay with. Should finish up okay.
Yeah.
I actually first met both Joseph and Dana about 4 years ago as students at the Sheridan College Craft and Design program, and both were studying in the furniture studio. Right from the start, both Joseph and Dana have been very active in the field of woodworking, and it's also been my pleasure to see them move from students into building a collaborative design studio and production house called DJ and JB, and which also kind of playfully references their own relationship as husband and wife.
Dana and I work very closely together. What do you think? We always bounce our ideas off each other. We work as a team. I think in coming up with how these awards have turned out, Dana's been just pushing me always to do more and to just dig in to the project. Basically for me to explore and dive into the making of these awards. A lot of it is on me as the guy who's in front of the lathe or doing most of the actual work and shaping of these things to actually treat each piece with its own intention. And then she kind of swoops in and adds whole other layers of meaning. She sees things that maybe I haven't seen and adds context and support. So it'll be in about there.
So as a collaborative team, they have developed to produce a really flexible and modern selection of work, and they always focus on using local materials, sustainable practices.
So Dana and I started JB plus DG while we were in school together. The acronym is our initials, Joseph Bowman plus Dana Gedney.
We're at Blossom and Bloom at Union Station in Toronto. It's a 2-day craft fair. We do one of these every 2 to 3 weeks throughout the summer. Depending on our booth size, we bring what we can, and because it is a flower show, we brought our planters and some of the paper flowers I've started making, and some wall hangings and mobiles.
So when it came time to establish a name for a business, that just seemed like apt. It's who we are, it's a bit of a love story, and it's simple. So our own approach is the simplest expression of an elegant idea. I'm the studio technician at the Wood Studio at Queen Elizabeth Park Community and Cultural Center, and I get to talk shop with residents every day I'm here and help out with projects and just hang out in the Wood Studio all day with people. I think specifically this community center is amazing. This is a space that, when it opened, I remember being intensely jealous of the first technician who scored the gig that I have now. Very intensely jealous. For me, it's kind of a coveted gig. I like the role. You get to meet a lot of people. You get to help out with a lot of projects. I get to do a lot of thinking about how I might solve a problem without actually having to solve that problem myself. I get to offer my advice and then see how that project plays out. So it's fun, it's rewarding, and it opened up a lot of opportunities. The fun part's over, and now the work begins.
What I know about Joseph and Dina's studio practice is that they've put a lot of hard work into building something that works both in terms of what they want to do creatively and what their customers are looking for. And so they have a really beautiful range of products that are very modern and aesthetic, but that are also very customizable, and that they're using local woods and sustainable practices.
I try not to be too precious about any of the material. I believe that the material is going to work. It's wood, it's beautiful, it has beautiful natural characteristics that I know I can turn into something that others will enjoy, and you kind of believe in that process and believe in the skill and craftsmanship and the eye and the hand, and go from there. The theme that we're starting from is volunteerism. So there's something in volunteering your time that is altruistic. It's caring for another person, a place. It's something completely outside of yourself. It's nurturing something. And so we thought it would be appropriate to present awards that had a bit of that in them. So they're vessels for succulent plants. They're all individually beautiful vessels for plants.
We chose succulents. We chose a variety of succulents and little trees to give some interest and color and layers. We actually get our plants from a nursery. A neighbor of ours has a small nursery in the East End where she grows everything from, she has her mother trees, and she grows everything from cuttings and the little succulents.
In our line of work, it's a rare opportunity to put that amount of time into something. So these pieces have been babied. They've been well loved, and I've been over every inch of them for hours, and it's been joyous. It's been a very enjoyable experience. If somebody comes in to see me at the queue and they really need help with something, there's a lot that I get out of helping people with their projects here. It's been my experience.
And I believe that our IT staff will I don't know if I did that prematurely or not. If you are hello, IT booth? Okay, thank you. Are we broadcasting now? Oh, okay. So to the members of the public, we're just resuming back into a public session open to the public. So give us a moment and we will be with you very soon. Would you be as kind to let the Jessica know that we are returning to public session? Thank you. Just to be legal and all that sort of thing, we need our clerk in the room. So we just give our committee clerk a second to return, and then we're good to go. Okay, our committee clerk has returned, and I do report at this time that the board of the Oakville Public Library met in closed session to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Members of the board, I need a motion to receive the information that was provided in the in-camera session. Can I get that motion, please? That is moved by Susan, seconded by Pankage. Any objection to the receipt? Seeing none, that is great. We dealt with other business before we went into public session or closed session. I'll ask one more time in case anything has jogged your memory. Is there any new business to come before the board tonight? I am not seeing any, so I will, Madam Committee Clerk, oh no, I have it right here. Our next board meeting is on Thursday, April 28th, 2022. At this point, it is a virtual meeting, so tune into your Zoom channel, and we'll be back on the 28th of April for our next board meeting. Members of the board, I need a motion to adjourn. That is moved by Janet, seconded by Susan. Thank you very much. Any objection to adjourning tonight's meeting? I'm not seeing any, so I declare this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, members of the board, for your participation this evening. Thank you, staff, for your information and all of your hard work. And thank you once again to the public who are still with us, if there are any still with us, for your interest in our Oakville Public Library. Good night, everybody. Have a great day and stay safe.